Hey, what's up? My name's Ercy and welcome back to my channel. I have just successfully participated in my first readathon for the Shelf Space Discord, and this was the Olympic Readathon. I was on Team Aphrodite and my team came in last. But it's okay. It's okay. We were up against some worthy opponents and I wound up reading more than I had pledged to read. When you signed up for this readathon, you kind of give an estimate of what you plan on reading, and I only pledged to read anywhere between 1 and 5 books, and I wound up reading 8, so that's a win for me. I've never read this many books in 1 month, even though a lot of it was, this month was very audiobook driven, just because I had a lot of things going on. Things are opening up here. We're trying to do more stuff outside. So I relied a lot on audiobooks to get a lot of my reading done. But wow, like a lot of these people in online, they read so many books in this 1 month. But the whole point of a readathon is to encourage people to read. Read more than what you normally do. Whether you don't read any books, maybe you just want to read 1. If you read 2, try 3. You know, I pledged to read between 1 and 5. I read 8. So I think that's pretty awesome. Even though my team came in last, like I really felt like it was a really cool environment to be a part of, because there were just so many people just excited to talk about the books they were reading, really encouraging each other to read more, and I really found that to be really exciting to find on Discord. So I'll link the Discord in the description box in case any of you guys are interested in jumping on in and meeting some people who want to talk about books. Like I said, I read 8 books, so let's talk about what books they were, what prompts they fulfilled. Like I said, a lot of it is audiobooks, so let's just jump into it. The first 3 books I talked about more in depth in one of my last videos that I'll link up here, which talked about the Twisted Tale series. So I read the first 5 books of the Twisted Tale series. 3 of them were during this month. So the first one that fulfilled the prompt for this month was As Old as Time by Liz Braswell, and this one is a Beauty and the Beast retelling, and this one fulfilled the prompt for Dionysus because of the red cover. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It was very whimsical, a lot of fun, and it had dual perspectives, or it had multiple perspectives and a dual timeline, so that was pretty cool. So while I did enjoy this Beauty and the Beast retelling, I didn't love it. I mean, it was fun while I was reading it, but it's not something that I would find myself going back to. It was just fun to read, and just for the nostalgia of reading something that involved Beauty and the Beast. This particular book reimagines the tale with the enchantress that cursed the beast being Belle's mother, and the ramifications of that decision, or of that encounter, I should say. But like I said, I go more in depth in that other video, so I won't talk your ears off about it, and I'll just move on to the next book, which was Part of Your World by Liz Braswell. And this one I also gave 3 out of 5 stars, and this one is a Little Mermaid retelling. So this fulfilled the prompt for Poseidon, which is all about water. And this book takes place about 5 years after the events of the Little Mermaid movie. This one reimagines the story, saying that Ursula won the battle that they had at the end of the movie, which I also kind of go into just because I feel like the Little Mermaid didn't really do anything. She just kind of caused problems and other people fixed it. But this one redeemed Ariel in a sense, because she's older, she's more mature, and she's dealing with the consequences of her actions, and she takes it upon herself to fix the problems that she caused. So Vanessa, or Ursula, is on land causing problems. Ariel is underwater dealing with the kingdom. She has no voice. Eric is still under the spell. So Ariel matures a lot, and the action that happens in this book really sort of redeemed Ariel's character, in my opinion. But again, I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because it wasn't something that I absolutely loved. I did enjoy it. It wasn't bad. It did begin really slowly. So it's definitely a book that you want to read if you're like a big fan of any of these Disney movies, but it's not life-changing, you know what I mean? It was just fun. The third book, however, that I read this month was Reflection by Elizabeth Lim. This is my first 5-star read of the month, and this is a Mulan retelling where we find Mulan journeying through the underworld to save Captain Shang. Now, I love this book. I raved about this book in that last video that I mentioned already. I could not stop talking about this book. It was just so good. So if it filled 2 prompts, I wound up choosing it for Aries, but it could also fall under Hades because obviously she's going in the underworld, she's dealing with ghosts and the undead, and Mulan is a soldier, and we're dealing with, you know, her being in the army or the Chinese military during this time. But because another book wound up being Hades, I wound up choosing this one for Aries. But I'll go into that later. So I love this book because I felt like it was just done so well. It was just so beautifully told. Her journey through the underworld also kind of mirrors or reflects the journey that she goes through personally, like her inner turmoil about her discovering who she is and what she really wants to do and what her purpose is. And I felt like that really mirrored the physical journey that she went through during her time in the underworld to save Captain Shang. Because in this book, Captain Shang is the one that gets injured by the Hun leader, and he's like dying, and Mulan has to go save him. The book itself was really descriptive in the way that she travels through the underworld, and I felt like it was amazing because you have all of these influences from classical literature of, you know, people going through these journeys in the underworld, but the focus laid on the Chinese folklore that dominated throughout her journey. And I just felt like that was so cool and so beautiful, and I love to see that in books. You know, a lot of times books are very Eurocentric or Western inspired, and it was really cool to see this idea but from a Chinese folklore-ish perspective. Like, if you like Mulan stories or Mulan inspired stories, I feel like this is just such a good book. Like, it was just so good. I cannot stop talking about this book. It was so good. It's one of my favorites of the year so far. If you get a chance, you should definitely check it out. I feel like it's my favorite of the series so far. So that's Reflection by Elizabeth Lim. So the fourth book I read for the readathon was a sci-fi novella called Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. And this one could have fulfilled 2 prompts. It could have fulfilled Hades or Apollo. Hades because she is seen as the adopted daughter of Death, and Apollo because it's a non-traditional format because it's a novella. When I logged it in as Hades because I felt like I thought I would have been able to insert like a comic book or something, but I didn't wind up doing that. But the points would have been the same, so it didn't really matter. But this sci-fi novella takes place in Ghana, and it follows Fatima after her encounter with an alien relic or artifact that changes her. She winds up receiving these powers that are directly connected with her emotions, and she winds up glowing this green energy, and that anything that touches that energy dies. And then anything that she touches physically, cell phones or anything electronic or mechanical, like, it doesn't work either. So she winds up living this very lonely life, and it's a coming of age story, but you know, with the sci-fi in it, because she has like this alien power to her that brings death upon anything that she chooses to or anything that's near her. So after her encounter with this thing, this rock or artifact, she forgets her name, and throughout the majority of the book she is known as Sankofa. And after a quick Google search, I learned that Sankofa is sort of a Ghanaian word that is meant to represent something, or represent this idea about looking towards your past or using things from your past and bringing it into the present to bring positivity into whatever it is in your present. I felt like that was very fitting in this book because Sankofa goes on this physical and personal journey towards finding the relic or the alien artifact that was actually stolen from her towards the beginning of the book. she goes on this journey to go find it and find the man that took it, along with learning about herself and trying to come into her own identity and just like learning about herself while she's dealing with grief and loneliness. She has to pass through these towns because, again, she can't get into cars or anything. She has to walk, and she winds up bringing this sort of energy into this town where people fear her. She kind of becomes like this urban legend, and it's really cool, like the way that it's described, but it's just so sad at the same time because she's just living this lonely life surrounded by people who are just scared of her all the time because of this thing that she can't really control, or she winds up learning to control it. But it was just really well written, beautifully executed. Like, I love this book. I gave this one 5 out of 5 stars as well, so this is my second 5-star book this month. It was just really interesting. Like, I feel like if you're looking for something a little different, this is a great choice. This book was just so good. It was very immersive too. Like, I really wanted to be on this journey with her, but I also didn't want to be on this journey with her. But I just thought this was just a really cool book. Very original too. Like, I haven't read any stories like this or even seen any movies like this. Not that I can think of, at least not off the top of my head, but it just felt really original for me. And I just thought it was so good. If you have a chance, just check it out. It's short, it's sweet, doesn't waste any time inserting things that the author found to be unnecessary to kind of drag it along, but you're just committed to this journey with this character as she comes of age and learns to deal with this power or curse, however you want to see it. So that's Remote Control by Nnedi Okorafor. Now, the 5th book I read this month was a nonfiction memoir, and that was In the Dreamhouse by Carmen Machado. So this book highlights the abuse the author went through in a previous relationship that she had. So this book is doing the work towards recognizing domestic abuse in queer relationships. As far as the readathon, this fulfilled the Hermes prompt because the author was in a long distance relationship with her abuser, and a lot of the times there were road trips in between. Throughout the book, she was in the car for a lot of the book, traveling back and forth to see her partner, and so the Hermes prompt is involving travel. I felt like this book was purposefully immersive, and that was due to the way that the author wrote the book. She replaced anything in the book that dealt with her, she made it you. So things were happening to you. You were in the car with the partner. You were in this situation. You were the one experiencing this abuse. So it felt like that was really effective in terms of making me feel what the author was going through instead of being told what happened to her. And I felt like that was really effective in making this message come across. And the message that the author is trying to get across here is she just wanted to highlight what happened to her, right? Talk about her experience. That way others who may be experiencing the same thing has something that they can kind of go to, because the author felt like she didn't have that. And she was scared to write this book for a long time because of the pressure from that partner to not expose what it was that she was going through. It's an important read in terms of equalizing the playing field for queer relationships. The author makes it a point to say that while it's always important to highlight the good in queer relationships, to grant equal rights for these relationships, because a lot of the times these relationships are being demonized for being different. But what's important is to also highlight the negative in these relationships, because it humanizes the people that are involved in these in queer relationships. It's important to highlight the negative because it shows that queer people are complex and rounded, right? And they have different elements to it. So if you have the good and positive in these relationships, you should also be able to recognize that there are negative in these relationships as well. And that's something that by highlighting the negative, you allow for things to be put in place to help people in those situations, rather than just ignore it and sweep it under the rug because nobody knows about it. I did rate it 4 out of 5 stars. but it's one of those situations where it's hard to say like I loved it, because I hated what happened to her. I hated that she went through what she went through. Like I wish I was there to help her through it, because there were times in the book where she talks about her friends and how they reacted towards her, and them wanting to help her, and she was just kind of stuck in this bubble of fear. And I just wish I was there to hold her hand through it, and just tell her it was going to be okay. And it's just hard to say like I loved it, because I hated what happened to her. But it is a good book, and I feel like it's an important book, and it's one that will stick with me for a long time, I feel. But yes, that's In the Dreamhouse by Carmen Maria Machado. Now on to something a little bit more positive. The sixth and only physical book I was able to read this month was Take a Hint, Dani Brown by Talia Hibbert. And now this is a romance, and this is a second in a series of the Brown sister trilogy. So I used this for the Hestia prompt of Found Family, because originally I wasn't going to use it for a prompt. I was going to use this as a book outside of a prompt. But upon reading the book, you learn that Dani Brown, she sort of rediscovers her family. She rediscovers the fact that she can open up to the people in her life. And I felt like it really changed the way that she has her relationships, or the way that she views her relationships with the people that surround her. So that's why I felt like it really fit that prompt of found family, because it's like a rediscovery of the people that are there for her. And it really altered, and the events in this book altered and changed the way that she views relationships. So Dani is a very career-driven person. She has no time for serious relationships. And it also follows Raph, who's a former rugby player who works at the same place that she works at. And he is also the founder of this nonprofit organization that puts a focus on mental health for young boys that he coaches. So they're friends. There's a workplace fire drill. Homegirl gets stuck in the elevator. He helps her get out of the elevator. He carries her out of the building. The students film this, and they wind up being viral, and they wind up faking a relationship in order to kind of take advantage of the publicity that's going on in order to help his nonprofit organization. So I love that the main priority of this book was to highlight the mental health, while also having this story of, or this focus on these two characters getting it on, right? Like, they're gonna get together. It's a romance, right? I love that you had that and this extra element that kind of bumped it up a notch, in my opinion. What kept this from being a 5-star book for me, I think it was that trope of the fake relationship. They were friends, and they obviously had this chemistry with each other, but because they're in this fake relationship, and their fear for getting more involved, they use that as excuses to be like, he's lying, this is fake, when they're actually doing things that are genuine. And I just felt like the things that they were doing were really obvious, and to use that it's fake, it's he's just acting because of the fake relationship, it was just kind of annoying a little bit, because it was like obvious. It was like too obvious, like, for anyone, they were just in denial for their feelings, and I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I just felt like it was kind of dumb, but whatever. It's supposed to be a lighthearted read anyways. I just felt like it was kind of funny that throughout the majority of the book, you wind up having this mentality or this focus on, like, when are they going to get it on? When are they going to do it, right? You kind of root for that throughout a lot of the novel, and it was just kind of funny that I found myself doing that, and that's sort of the way that the author kind of designed the book in a sense, because you have like this building tension between the two of them, and they're like, I want to do it with this person, and then until finally they do, and it's really steamy, so it's pretty good. I feel like this would be a perfect summer read because it's lighthearted and fun while also being a very smart and witty read, because of the way that they address mental health and, you know, taking time for yourself and not always prioritizing work. You know, you should still prioritize work, but not to the detriment of your own mental health and things that are important aside from work, you know? So yeah, I gave this 4 out of 5 stars. I did like this book. It fulfilled the Hestia prompt, and this was the only physical book I was able to get to this month, but that's okay because I read a lot of audiobooks and I got to spend a lot more time doing other things than just sitting down, right? So yeah, that's the 6th book of this readathon for me. 2 more books, 2 more audiobooks. So the 7th book I wound up reading was Artemis by Nnedi Weir. I mean, there's a big old moon on the cover. The name is Artemis, so obviously it fulfilled the Artemis prompt of a book involving the moon. This is a sci-fi book. Nnedi Weir is the author of The Martian, and he just came out with another book too. But yeah, I picked up this book on a whim. Like, my husband read it and he encouraged me to read this book. We saw that it fulfilled the moon prompt perfectly. Just decided to go for it. I had time to throw in another audiobook after coming off of reading In the Dreamhouse. So this book follows Jazz, and she lives on the moon. We have colonized the moon. There's a city on the moon, and there's like this whole society, and Jazz lives there. She's very smart, but she just kind of makes bad decisions. So she winds up being in a position where she's a smuggler, and she winds up getting into a situation that's way over her head. And I can't really go into it because that sort of becomes the twists and the turns in this book. But what winds up happening is she's just part of this thing that was way bigger than what she had originally thought she was going to be involved in. So I gave this one 3 out of 5 stars. It was fun. It was a good time, but it wasn't something life-changing or altering, you know what I mean? It was just like a fun book to read. It definitely read like a sci-fi movie where there's like a lot of action, a lot of, you know, people being smartasses and like making funny commentary and being sarcastic and stuff, but it wasn't like revolutionary, you know what I mean? What I did really like was that Nnedi Weir does not shy away from the science. He was not afraid to like make his character smart and explain some of the processes towards actually making something like a city on the moon and what that would involve, and sort of the jobs and how the science behind those jobs would work, or at least what what sounds like it would work. A lot of it did go over my head, but not all of it. Like, a lot of it did make sense because, you know, we were talking about like pressure between outside and inside and all that stuff. So it was pretty cool. I did enjoy that. It was really smart. It was fun. Again, not life-changing, but it was a good time. If you're looking for some sci-fi action, like, this is a good book for that. And now the last book, and the one that fulfilled the prompt for Aphrodite, which is a beautiful cover, was The Unravelling of Cassidy Jones. And now this wasn't going to originally be the choice that I had. I did want to read To Sleep in a Sea of Stars by Christopher Paolini, but I could not finish this month, but I had time for an audiobook. So I really think the cover for this book is really beautiful, or at least for me. I wound up using it for this prompt, so you get double points for doing the prompt for your team. The Unravelling of Cassidy Jones by Elissa R. Sloan. I wound up giving this book 3 out of 5 stars. I felt like it started off strong and it kind of just was like mediocre, but then it just like went up and down for me. But it's hard to say that as well. It's sort of like my feelings for In the Dreamhouse, because we are dealing with the main character. She's part of a girl group that was super big, at least in the book, right? And she winds up committing suicide. So you have like a dual timeline and multiple perspectives from Cassidy Jones during her time in the group, as well as in present time of the other bandmates, reflecting on that time, on their time of being in the group after her death. Like, they're thinking about what happened and why she may have made that decision to end her life. So it's not a happy book. if anything, I feel like it was good timing for me to read this book because, you know, all the stuff with like Free Britney and her conservatorship, and we're highlighting celebrity culture and how you have this idea of everything being so positive and glamorous on the outside, but being unaware of everything happening behind the scenes. And everything behind the scenes for this group was just very ugly and toxic and just really sad, because these are things that people go through. I remember reading the memoir for Jessica Simpson, Open Book, and she talked a lot about, you know, the pressures to being thin and how it like gave her this, you know, disordered eating, and you're constantly like working out and not taking care of yourself, and you have all these people and the pressure to be famous and beautiful and all this stuff, toxicity behind the scenes and everything. And I feel like that was really addressed in this book. It was just really sad. I don't know, like everything that was going on with these girls during their time in the group, I felt like the author really pulled in a lot of the stuff that celebrities go through when you're talking about being manipulated by management, being entrapped by fame, the pressures to be popular, to be thin, to be beautiful. Who do you have on your arm? What are you wearing? Having the best clothes, and like this pressure to be what society wants you to be, but they're suffering because it's not healthy. It's not a good thing for them to do. You know, she's like starving. She's always hungry all the time. She's surrounded by people who only want her for her money, right? Even her bandmates like can't be trusted, right? It's just this whole environment that she was surrounded with that contributed to the decline of her mental health, and it was just really sad. I gave this 3 out of 5 stars because it was just like up and down. Like my interest kept wavering because of just some of the stuff that was going on that was just kind of petty at points. I don't know if it's maybe because I'm just a little older. I'm in my 30s now. So a lot of the stuff that I see, like I recognize some of the things would be important to people that are younger, but now looking back, I'm like, that's kind of dumb. But you know, it's not my place. But I did feel like it was good. It was well written. It was beautifully told, but it's just, I don't feel like it's gonna stick with me. You know, it was still interesting. I'm not gonna reread this, and I didn't absolutely love this book, but it's not a bad book. All right, so those were all of the books that I read for the Olympic Readathon. Second video where my equipment fails me. So it cut out right when I'm filming my outro. So that's fun for me. So what I was saying before my camera cut me off was just to share your thoughts in the comments. Did you read any of these books? What did you read this month? Let me know. If you plan on reading any of these books, let me know. So if you enjoyed this video, give it a like. If you want to see more, subscribe. And I hope you guys have an amazing day. And I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.